The ultimatum. The Galactic Council chamber hung suspended in the void between stars, a massive crystalline structure that refracted the light of 1,000 suns. Inside, representatives from 500 species sat in concentric rings, their bodies as varied as the worlds they hailed from. Some floated in containment fields, others stood on specialized platforms, and many sat in chairs adapted to their unique physiologies. At the center of it all stood Admiral Helena Reyes, the last human representative to address the Council. Her uniform bore the insignia of Earth's United Space Command, its fabric worn at the edges from too many battles and too little rest. "Humanity stands accused of violating Council directives," announced High Arbiter Xental, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate metallic shell. "The evidence has been presented, testimonies have been heard. This Council will now render judgment." Helena didn't flinch as holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showcasing humanity's alleged crimes, unauthorized expansion into restricted sectors, weaponizing forbidden technologies, forming alliances with non-Council species, and most damning of all, responding with overwhelming force when diplomacy failed. "The human approach is incompatible with galactic harmony," continued Xental, his voice resonating through translation nodes. "Your species acts without consensus, deploys solutions without approval, and refuses to abide by established protocols, even after repeated warnings." Helena stepped forward, her voice steady. "With respect, Arbiter, those protocols left 17 human colonies vulnerable to the swarm incursion. While the Council debated for 6 months, humans were dying. We acted because no one else would." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The swarm had been contained by humans, using methods the Council had explicitly forbidden. "The outcomes do not justify the means," countered Lirvassa of the Mithrani Conclave, her tendriled appendages rippling with bioluminescent anger. "You employed military solutions to what should have been handled through diplomatic channels." "We tried diplomacy," Helena replied, her composure cracking slightly. "The swarm consumed our diplomatic team. We have the footage if you care to review it again." The chamber fell silent. They'd all seen the footage, the human ambassadors extending peace offerings to the swarm's advanced scouts, only to be dismembered and devoured within minutes. "The human tendency toward direct action threatens the very foundation of our cooperative society," said Delegate Taurus, a massive silicon-based entity whose crystalline body hummed with disapproval. "Your unpredictability makes you dangerous allies and worse neighbors." Helena's hands clenched at her sides. "And yet when the Xilari pirates threatened trade routes in the Cygnus Arm, you were quick to request human intervention. When the plague struck Betelgeuse colonies, our medical corps worked without rest." "When these contributions are acknowledged," interrupted Xental, "but they do not outweigh the infractions. Humanity has been warned repeatedly to conform to Council methods. You have chosen, consistently, to disregard these warnings." A holographic ballot appeared before each delegate. Helena watched as, one by one, they cast their votes. Her stomach tightened as the verdict began to materialize. By overwhelming majority, Xental announced, "This Council decrees that humanity is to be exiled from galactic society. All human vessels are hereby restricted to solar systems already under human control. Council technology must be surrendered. Trade restrictions will commence immediately. Any human vessel found outside designated zones will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated voices, some protesting, most approving. Helena stood motionless, absorbing the magnitude of what had just transpired. Earth and her colonies, cut off from the galactic community they had fought so hard to join. "You would exile us for solving problems you couldn't solve yourselves," she finally said, her voice carrying despite its softness. The chamber quieted to hear her words. "This isn't about violations or protocols," Helena continued. "This is about fear. Humanity adapts quickly. We solve problems differently. We take action when others would debate, and that frightens you." She looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of every species that had eyes to meet. Very well. We accept your exile. But remember this day when you face a threat that cannot be contained by committee, that will not wait for consensus, that doesn't care about your protocols or your rules of engagement. Helena straightened her uniform and delivered her final words as Earth's representative. Humanity will survive without you. The question is, will you survive without us? As she turned to leave, Xental's voice topped her. Admiral Reyes, know that this decision was not made lightly. Perhaps in time, after humanity has learned restraint. Spare me. Helena cut him off. We both know this is permanent. You're not teaching us a lesson. You're eliminating a variable you can't control. The doors of the chamber sealed behind her with a finality that echoed throughout human space. Within hours, Council enforcers began the process of separation, deactivating jump gates leading to human systems, recalling diplomatic missions, and broadcasting the new restrictions across known space. On Earth, the response was immediate and unified. Emergency sessions convened in the orbital Parliament Station. Military commanders scrambled to retrieve personnel from distant outposts before they could be stranded. Colonial governors initiated resource assessments and contingency plans. In her quarters aboard the flagship Intrepid, Helena reviewed the incoming reports with a growing sense of grim determination. Resource shortages were inevitable. Medical supplies, certain technological components, rare elements, all would become critical issues within months. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Captain Darian Reed entered, his face haggard from the day's events. Admiral, we've received word from the outer colonies. Council ships are already enforcing the exile. Merchant vessels are being turned back. Research teams have been escorted out of shared facilities. It's happening faster than we anticipated. Helena nodded. They fear we'll stockpile resources if given time. The Science Directorate reports that without access to Council databases, our research in several areas will be set back decades. Then we'll find new paths, Helena replied firmly. Humanity reached the stars before we met the Council. We'll continue to advance without them. Reed hesitated. Ma'am, there's something else. Before communications were cut, we received an unusual transmission from Counselor Tarek of the Solari. It was heavily encrypted and addressed specifically to you. He handed her a data crystal. Helena turned it over in her palm, wondering what the reclusive Solari delegate, one of the few who had voted against exile, would risk sending to her. Thank you, Captain. Continue the evacuation protocols. I want all humans back in our territory within 48 hours. When Reed left, Helena inserted the crystal into her secure terminal. Counselor Tarek's wizened face appeared, his 4 eyes blinking asynchronously, a sign of distress in Solari. Admiral Reyes, I risk much to send this warning. The Council's decision was based on more than your violations. There is fear, yes, but also opportunity. Certain factions have coveted human territory for centuries. Your exile creates a power vacuum they intend to fill. But more concerning is what the Council is hiding, even from most of its members. Tarek leaned closer to the recording device, his voice dropping to a whisper. Something comes from the dark between galaxies. The Council has detected it but cannot understand it. Their probes go silent, their predictive models fail. They exiled humanity not just from fear of your methods, but because they believe whatever approaches will target aggressive species first. They're cutting you loose to save themselves. Helena's blood ran cold. My species remembers ancient dangers others have forgotten. Tarek continued. We recognize the patterns. Prepare your people, Admiral, not for a temporary exile, but for a war unlike any your species has known. The Council believes sacrificing humanity will spare the rest of us. They are wrong. When you are gone, we will be next. The recording ended, leaving Helena staring at a blank screen, her mind racing. She tapped her comm unit. Captain Reed, assemble the Joint Command, Priority Alpha, and contact Director Mason at R&D. Tell him to implement Project Phoenix immediately. Project Phoenix, ma'am. But that's just a theoretical. Not anymore, Captain. As of now, it's our future. Helena turned to the viewport, gazing at the stars that once represented possibility and partnership, now transformed into a barrier of isolation. If the Council thought exile would break humanity or force them to conform, they had fundamentally misunderstood the species they were dealing with. Humanity hadn't survived plagues, world wars, climate collapse, and their own self-destructive tendencies by giving up when challenged. They had endured by adapting, innovating, and, when necessary, fighting with everything they had. The Council had just made the gravest mistake in its 1,000-year history. They had given humanity nothing to lose. And if what Tarek warned of was true, the Council would learn, too late, that exiling humanity might have doomed them all. The Descent. The first year of exile broke humanity in ways that wars and disasters never could. When the Council blockade solidified, nearly 30% of human ships were stranded beyond the quarantine line, their crews forced to abandon valuable vessels and return home in hastily arranged evacuation transports. Colonies dependent on regular supply chains faced immediate shortages. Medical facilities ran out of specialized treatments synthesized in Council laboratories. Communication networks built on Council technology faltered, then failed entirely. Marina Chen, governor of the Proxima Centauri colony, stood in the emergency command center beneath New Athens, watching as technicians struggled to maintain power to the agricultural domes. Outside, the perpetual storms of Proxima raged against reinforced windows, a fitting backdrop to humanity's current predicament. "Governor, we've lost contact with the orbital platforms," reported her chief of operations. "Without the relay stations, we can't coordinate the weather shields. Sectors 3 through 7 will be exposed to full radiation levels within hours." Marina closed her eyes briefly. Those sectors contain nearly half their food production. Evacuate all personnel and seal the sectors. Initiate emergency rationing, effective immediately. "Yes, Governor. There's one more thing." The Council left a message beacon in orbit. It's broadcasting on all channels. Marina's expression hardened. "Let's hear it." A holographic display activated, showing the impassive face of Enforcer Killax, one of the Council's military commanders. "People of Proxima Colony, the Council offers clemency. Surrender your advanced technologies and accept reduction to protected status, and we will provide essential supplies and protection. Continue your defiance, and you will be abandoned to your fate. You have 30 days to comply." The message repeated on a loop, echoing through the command center. Around the room, faces showed a mixture of desperation and determination. "Turn it off," Marina ordered, "and prepare a response." "What should it say, Governor?" Marina smiled grimly. "Nothing. Our response won't be in words." Similar scenes played out across human space. On Mars, the terraforming engines that had been slowly making the planet habitable stuttered as key components failed without Council replacement parts. In the asteroid belt, mining operations ground to a halt as specialized equipment broke down. Earth itself faced energy shortages as fusion plants built with Council technology became increasingly unstable. Admiral Rice, now appointed emergency coordinator by the United Earth government, faced these cascading crises from the newly established command hub in the Sierra Nevada mountain range, one of the few facilities built entirely with human technology. "Status report," she demanded, entering the cavernous operational center carved into the mountain's heart. Director Elias Mason of Research and Development approached, his normally immaculate appearance now disheveled after weeks without proper rest. "It's worse than we projected, Admiral. Council tech is embedded deeper in our infrastructure than we realized. It's not just that we can't build certain things. Many of our systems were designed to receive regular updates from Council networks. Without those updates, they're degrading faster than we can replace them." Helena nodded grimly. "And Project Phoenix?" Mason gestured to a secure terminal. "That's our one piece of good news. The team has made breakthroughs we didn't expect for years." On the screen, complex schematics rotated slowly. designs for technologies that operated on principles the Council had deemed too dangerous to explore. How soon? Helena asked. For basic implementations, 6 months. Full deployment will take years. The problem isn't the science. It's manufacturing at scale without Council facilities. Helena studied the designs. Project Phoenix had been a secret initiative, exploring alternative technological paths that didn't rely on Council principles. What had been a theoretical precaution was now humanity's lifeline. Prioritize communications and medical technologies, she ordered. We need to reconnect our colonies and stabilize casualty rates. As they spoke, a young technician approached hesitantly. Admiral, we've intercepted transmissions from Council space. They're not encrypting them. I think they want us to hear. Helena frowned. Put it through. The main display shifted to show Council news broadcasts. Images of human trading posts being dismantled, human technologies being confiscated, and human cultural centers being repurposed flashed across the screen. The message was clear. The galaxy was erasing humanity's presence. More disturbing were the interviews with Council citizens, expressing relief that the unpredictable humans had been contained. Some species celebrated openly, already planning expansions into territories that had once buffered their domains from human space. They're rewriting history, Mason observed quietly, making it seem like we were always the problem. Helena's expression remained unchanged, but her eyes hardened. Let them believe what they want. Actions matter more than narratives. She turned to address the entire command center. I want daily updates from all colonies, no matter how small. Establish communication with any human vessels still hidden in Council space. Activate all sleeper agents in Council territories. Intelligence gathering only, no operations. As the staff rushed to comply, Helena pulled Mason aside. There's something else. A warning I received before communications were cut. The Council may have had another reason for exiling us. She shared Counselor Tarek's message. Mason listened with growing concern. If this is true, the Council has sacrificed us to save themselves from something they don't understand, he concluded. Or they've made a critical miscalculation. Helena countered. Either way, we need to accelerate Phoenix. Not just to survive exile, but to prepare for whatever comes next. Over the following months, humanity's descent continued. Outposts in the Jupiter and Saturn systems went dark, overwhelmed by technical failures and resource shortages. The moon colonies maintained stability, but at reduced capacity. Mars endured through strict rationing and repurposing every available technology. Earth itself turned inward, converting luxury industries to essential production, transforming entertainment complexes into hydroponics facilities, and militarizing civilian infrastructure. The pain was real and widespread, but something unexpected emerged alongside the hardship. Innovation exploded. Without Council restrictions on research methodologies, scientists explored approaches that had been prohibited for generations. Engineers, forced to build with limited resources, created elegant solutions from scrap and salvage. When Council technology failed, human ingenuity filled the gaps with alternatives that were often crude but increasingly effective. In her private quarters, Helena reviewed the latest reports. Despite the challenges, death rates were stabilizing. New communication networks, built on principles the Council had abandoned centuries ago, were reconnecting isolated colonies. Makeshift manufacturing facilities were producing basic medical supplies that, while less sophisticated than Council versions, saved lives nonetheless. A notification chimed on her terminal, Priority 1 from Proxima Centauri. She activated the connection, surprised to see Governor Chen's face, tired but triumphant. Governor, this is unexpected. Our last report showed Proxima in critical condition. Marina Chen smiled. That was before our engineers managed something remarkable. Admiral, when the Council cut us off, they assumed we'd either surrender or perish. What they didn't account for was our ability to adapt. The transmission shifted to show the colony's agricultural domes, now protected by a shimmering energy field unlike anything in Council technology. We lost nearly 40% of our food production in the first storm, Marina explained. But Dr. Okafor's team repurposed mining shields using principles the Council considers obsolete. It's less efficient than what we had, but it's ours. We control it completely. Similar reports began flowing in from other colonies. Necessity had become the mother of not just invention, but reinvention. Humanity was being forced to unlearn dependencies on Council technology and rediscover their own potential. In the command hub, Helena called an emergency session of the Joint Leadership Council, representatives from every major human settlement that still maintained contact with Earth. 1 year ago, she began, the Galactic Council exiled us, believing we would either conform to their standards or collapse without their support. They were wrong on both counts. Holographic displays showed the current state of human space, fragmented but stabilizing, wounded but healing. We've lost much, Helena continued. 23 outposts have gone dark completely. Our population has decreased by an estimated 15 million due to resource shortages and technological failures. Our industrial capacity is at 40% of pre-exile levels. The room was silent, each representative acutely aware of the losses their communities had suffered. But we have gained something crucial. Helena's voice strengthened. Independence. The technologies emerging from Project Phoenix don't mimic Council systems. They surpass them in key areas. Our new communication network is more resilient. Our adapting medical technologies are less resource-intensive. Our defensive capabilities, while reduced in scale, are advancing in effectiveness. Director Mason stepped forward. More importantly, we're no longer bound by Council doctrines. Their technological development has been stagnant for centuries because they prioritize stability over advancement. We've made more progress in certain fields in 1 year than they've made in the last 100. Marina Chen's hologram nodded. Proxima is now entirely self-sufficient in food production. Our new energy systems are primitive by Council standards, but completely independent of external inputs. Similar reports came from other colonies, painful adaptations that were slowly transforming weakness into strength. Helena waited until all representatives had spoken. Today marks a transition. We're no longer in emergency response mode. From this point forward, we implement Phase 2 of Project Phoenix, coordinated advancement across all human territories. The display shifted to a new schematic, a reorganization of human space into a more defensible configuration, with streamlined supply chains and redundant systems. No longer trying to maintain Council-approved patterns, humanity would reshape itself according to its own needs. The Council believes they've contained us, Helena concluded. They're watching our borders, expecting us to either beg for readmission or collapse entirely. They don't realize that what they've actually done is set us free. As the meeting adjourned, Director Mason approached Helena privately. There's been a development regarding Counselor Tarek's warning. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected anomalies at the edge of charted space, exactly where he predicted. Helena's expression remained neutral, but her pulse quickened. How long do we have? Based on current trajectories, whatever's out there will reach Council space in approximately 4 years. And human space. Mason hesitated. If it continues on its current path after encountering the Council, less than 5 years. Helena gazed at the strategic display, watching as humanity's fragmented territories pulsed with renewed activity. Then we have work to do. Part 3. The Crucible. Accelerate the burn. Dr. Kira Nomura shouted over the roar of the experimental engine. The massive testing chamber vibrated as power surged through systems never meant to handle such loads. Behind reinforced observation windows, technical teams monitored readings that would have been impossible under Council restrictions. The engine's core glowed with an inner light that seemed to bend reality around it, not the gentle blue of Council drives, but a fierce, almost defiant orange. Containment holding at 93%, reported Chief Engineer Alvarez. We're pushing beyond design parameters, Doctor. Keep pushing. Kira ordered. "We need to know where the breaking point is." 3 years into exile, the underground research facility beneath the Atacama Desert had become the heart of humanity's technological resurrection. Here, freed from council oversight, scientists explored principles that had been theorized but never tested under the strict regulations of galactic society. The engine screamed, its harmonics rising to a pitch that set teeth on edge. Then, with a flash that temporarily overloaded the observation sensors, it stabilized at a new energy state. Cheers erupted from the technical team as data flooded their screens. Kira allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. "Congratulations, everyone. Phoenix Drive version 4 has just achieved stable operation at 160% of Council standard efficiency." The celebration was brief. They all knew what was at stake. Humanity wasn't just developing new technology for survival. They were racing against a clock whose final alarm would mean extinction. Across human space, similar breakthroughs were occurring at an unprecedented pace. The exile that was meant to cripple humanity had instead forced a fundamental revaluation of everything they thought they knew. In the orbital shipyards above Mars, Commander Gabriela Santos watched as construction drones swarmed over the skeletal frame of what would become the Defiance, the first warship built entirely with post-exile technology. "Status report," she requested, floating alongside Chief Architect Lin. "We're ahead of schedule, Commander. The hull composition is testing at twice the resilience of pre-exile materials with only 70% of the mass. The Phoenix Drive integration is proceeding without compatibility issues." Santos studied the ship taking shape before her. Unlike the smooth, aesthetic designs favored by the Council, the Defiance was angular, functional, with no concessions to beauty that didn't serve purpose. "And the weapons systems." Lin's expression turned serious. "The particle lance prototypes have exceeded projections in isolated testing. Integration with ship systems begins next week. If successful, they'll outperform Council weapons technology by significant margins." "Good. Admiral Rice needs confirmation that we can defend ourselves when it becomes necessary." Their conversation was interrupted by a priority alert. Santos accessed the notification, her expression darkening as she read. "We need to accelerate the timeline. The Ganymede Deep Space Array has detected increased activity at the edge of Council space. Whatever's out there is moving faster than we predicted." On Earth, Admiral Rice convened an emergency session of the Phoenix Directorate, the governing body that had emerged to coordinate humanity's recovery efforts. The underground command center had expanded over the years, now a sprawling complex of research labs, strategic planning chambers, and communication hubs. "Show me," Helena ordered as the representatives took their seats. The central holographic display activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of known space. Council territories glowed in blue, human space in green, and at the very edge, a spreading darkness represented by pulsing red markers. Director Mason, now gray-haired but more energetic than ever, manipulated the display to zoom in on the anomalies. "We've been monitoring through automated probes placed before the exile. Over the past 6 months, 37 Council outposts in this sector have gone silent. Official Council broadcasts make no mention of this. They're suppressing information about whatever's happening." Governor Chen, who had become one of Helena's most trusted advisors, studied the pattern. "It's methodical, not random attacks. This follows a strategic logic, isolating regions before advancing. Analysis suggests an intelligence at work," agreed Colonel Naomi Washington, head of the newly formed Defense Corps. "These aren't natural phenomena or mindless aggression. There's purpose behind these movements." Helena considered the evidence before them. "Counselor Tarek warned us about something coming from between galaxies, something the Council detected but couldn't understand. I believe this confirms his warning. Why wouldn't the Council alert their citizens?" asked Governor Riza of the Mars colonies. "Surely preparation would be better than ignorance." "Because their entire society is built on the illusion of perfect control," Helena replied. Admitting there's a threat they can't manage would undermine the foundation of their authority. They'd rather face extinction than transformation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council, which had exiled humanity for being too aggressive, too adaptable, too willing to evolve, was now facing a threat that required exactly those qualities. "What's our status?" Helena finally asked, turning to the various department heads. Dr. Nomura, recently arrived from the Atacama facility, stepped forward. "Phoenix Drive technology is now operational at scale. We've retrofitted 60% of our remaining fleet and are implementing the technology in all new constructions. Defensive systems have been upgraded across all major settlements," reported Colonel Washington. "The new shield technology is completely incompatible with Council override protocols. They can't shut us down remotely anymore. Food production and essential resources are stable across 90% of human territories," added Governor Chen. "We've achieved true independence from Council supply chains." One by one, each representative reported progress that would have seemed impossible in the early days of exile. Humanity had not merely survived, they had transformed, shedding dependencies and limitations imposed by centuries of Council oversight. Helena absorbed the reports with grim satisfaction. "And Project Lazarus?" Director Mason touched his terminal, causing a new schematic to appear in the display. A network of interconnected systems spanning human space. "The early warning grid is 90% complete. If anything crosses the boundary into our territory, we'll know instantly. The automated response platforms are at 70% deployment. Communication encryption is now based on principles the Council abandoned millennia ago. They won't be able to break it or interfere." Helena nodded. "Accelerate all programs. Based on current projections, whatever's coming will reach Council core worlds within 6 months. Once that happens, we need to be prepared for any outcome." As the meeting adjourned, Helena remained behind with Mason, Chen, and Colonel Washington. When the others had left, she activated additional security protocols. "There's something else we need to discuss," she said quietly. "Something only the 4 of us can know for now." She gestured, and a new display appeared, detailed scans of what appeared to be fragments of unknown technology. 3 months ago, one of our deep space reconnaissance drones recovered these from the debris field of a destroyed Council outpost. Analysis confirms they're not Council tech. They're not human either. Mason leaned forward, studying the fragments with intense concentration. "These energy signatures, they're unlike anything we've encountered. The material composition defies conventional information." Governor Chen frowned. "You're suggesting these aren't just invaders. They're collectors." "That's our working theory," confirmed Colonel Washington. "They don't just destroy. They assimilate. Technology, data, possibly even biological information. Each conquest makes them stronger and more adaptable." The implication hung heavy in the room. The Council, with its vast repository of knowledge accumulated over thousands of years, would be an irresistible target for such an entity. "We need to accelerate Project Omega," Helena said finally. "If the Council falls, we may be the last line of defense, not just for humanity, but for all sentient life in this galaxy." Mason looked troubled. Omega was theoretical, a last resort we hoped never to implement. The ethical implications alone will be less troubling than extinction. Helena cut him off. "I'm authorizing full development, effective immediately." As the meeting ended, Helena remained alone in the command center, studying the spreading pattern of silence across the galaxy. The irony was not lost on her. Humanity, exiled for being too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to take necessary action, might now be the galaxy's only hope precisely because of those qualities. The Council had cast them out, believing they were removing a dangerous element from their perfect society. Instead, they might have eliminated their only chance for survival. In the shipyards orbiting Mars, the Defiance neared completion, its weapons systems testing at capacities that would have horrified Council pacifists. In laboratories across human space, Technologies emerged that operated on principles the Council had abandoned as too unpredictable. And in hidden facilities, Project Omega took shape, a contingency so radical it would have been unthinkable before exile forced humanity to reconsider everything they thought they knew about survival. The crucible of exile had transformed humanity. The question now was whether that transformation had come in time. The reckoning. The Council's perfect society began to unravel on what would later be called Silence Day. Without warning, communication networks across 17 systems went dark simultaneously. Emergency protocols activated, then failed. Defense grids powered down. Automated systems stopped responding to commands. What had been bustling centers of Council civilization became islands of confusion and mounting panic. On the Council's capital world of Iridium Prime, High Arbiter Xental convened an emergency session, his energy form flickering with uncharacteristic instability. The situation is unprecedented, he admitted to the assembled delegates, many attending via emergency holographic connections as travel between systems became increasingly dangerous. We have lost contact with nearly 30% of Council space. Refugee ships report encounters with entities of unknown origin and capabilities. Councillor Vizine of the Arthosian Collective raised a limb for attention. These reports describe ships that don't match any known configuration. They appear to assimilate our technology upon contact. Defensive measures prove ineffective. Our analysis suggests these entities are driven by an imperative to collect and incorporate advanced technologies, added Science Minister Ulix. They target our most developed systems first, absorbing our achievements and growing stronger with each encounter. Murmurs of alarm spread through the chamber as the implications became clear. The Council's technological sophistication, once its greatest pride, had become its greatest vulnerability. What of the containment protocols? Asked a delegate from the outer systems. Surely our defense fleets can establish quarantine zones. Xental's form dimmed noticeably. Fleet effectiveness has been compromised. When our ships engage, approximately 60% are lost completely. The remainder return. Change, their crews reporting memory gaps, and their systems showing signs of external modification. Silence fell as the truth sank in. The Council, which had maintained peace and stability for 1,000 years, had no defense against this new threat. Perhaps, ventured an elderly delegate from a species known for its caution, we should consider requesting assistance from the humans. The suggestion provoked immediate outcry. The very idea of turning to the exiled species was anathema to many council members. The humans were exiled for valid reasons. Councillor Lirvassa insisted. Their aggressive tendencies and technological recklessness cannot be our solution. We would be replacing one threat with another. Xental raised a hand for silence. The option has been considered. However, our monitoring of human space indicates they have withdrawn behind our borders. Their development has proceeded along paths we cannot predict or control. We have no leverage to request their aid, nor guarantee they would provide it if asked. What he didn't share was the Council's most closely guarded secret, that long-range observation had detected massive energy signatures from human territory, suggesting technological advancements that exceeded Council projections by orders of magnitude. The humans hadn't just survived exile. They had thrived in ways that terrified those who had cast them out. We must rely on our own methods, Xental concluded. Increase evacuation efforts from threatened systems, redirect research resources to defensive technologies, maintain communication blackouts to prevent panic. As the session ended, Xental retreated to his private chambers. There, away from the public feeds, he opened a secure connection to military command. Enact Contingency Protocol Epsilon, he ordered. Begin immediate withdrawal from the outer sectors. Concentrate defenses around the core worlds. The military commander's expression remained professional, but his eyes betrayed shock. High Arbiter, that would mean abandoning nearly 200 systems and billions of citizens. The alternative is losing everything, Xental replied coldly. The Council will endure, even if sacrifices must be made. In human space, the approach of what they now called the Harvesters was tracked with clinical precision. The network of sensors and automated platforms established during Project Lazarus provided real-time intelligence on the invaders' movements and capabilities. Admiral Reyes stood before the strategic display in the Phoenix Directorate's war room, watching as red indicators spread across Council territory like a bloodstain. "Analysis confirms our earlier assessments," reported Colonel Washington. "The Harvesters target the most advanced systems first, absorbing technological and informational resources before moving on. They appear to operate with a distributed intelligence. Individual units function autonomously, but coordinate within a larger network." "And the Council's response?" Helena asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Exactly as predicted," replied Intelligence Director Chandra. "They're sacrificing outer systems to buy time for the core worlds. Refugee ships are being turned back at checkpoints. They're implementing a triage protocol on a galactic scale." Helena's expression hardened. "Estimated time until the Harvesters reach human space." "At current progression rates, 4 months," answered Director Mason. "However, each Council system they consume accelerates their advance. The timeline could compress significantly." Helena nodded. "Status of our preparations." The reports came rapidly. The defensive perimeter around human space was complete. The new fleet, built around Phoenix technology, was at 90% operational capacity.